Right, let's get a bit more on the news coming out of Manchester United today. So Jim Ratcliffe had plenty to say about taking charge of the club's football operations, from aiming to knock the likes of Manchester City and Liverpool off their perch to pursuing his dream of a Wembley of the North. Well, Sky News sports correspondent Rob Harris was there listening to him. Rob, so he had an awful lot to say. What struck you as his main priorities?
Well, it seems the stadium really is something to sort out. They know they've fallen behind so many of the rivals, and he has the two plans. One is to redevelop the whole site, to build a new stadium. Interestingly, when I asked him about the old stadium, he said Old Trafford as it is now could be used for the women's team and the academy, so that would be an interesting prospect. To redevelop could cost £1 billion, but there's the option of, as I say, a completely new site, but he wants public funds. He says London's had the Olympics, the money for the Stratford site, so perhaps a bit of levelling up across the country. So money should go into it. He's a billionaire.
What does he want public funds for?
That's what a lot of people be saying. A lot has been raised about Sir Jim's own wealth. He's only obviously going to own 27.7% of the club, paying £1.3 billion for it. So the question is, should he put his own cash in to fund this site? But he thinks there's a wider benefit. That's why there should be sort of investment from the public and from the government for it.
OK, that's interesting, as was the fact he says he's going to knock Manchester City and Liverpool off their perch. Was he playing to the gallery when he said that? Yeah, he's got to know. He was obviously invoking Sir Alex Ferguson back when he arrived at United. And it's interesting sort of delving into some of that detail. So who might they sign? What sort of identity player? And he says they need to find what their style is and not oscillate just between different styles, between managers. And you need that consistency because he knows there's been a lot of bad investment down the years in players there. And he said the 11 years that they're sort of facing, obviously, without the Premier League is not acceptable for a club like Manchester United. But he recognises that City are one of the best teams on the planet, and they are the ones to try to catch. Obviously, to do so, they've already signed the man who's going to become chief executive there, Omar Barada, and also they have the potential signing of Dan Ashworth, the sporting director. And he said he can't understand why Newcastle would make him sort of go on gardening leave for so long and they can't just get that deal done. Speaking of time frames then, he said, United are going to do all this, they're going to be the best team and all that in 3 years. Is that putting yourself under pressure if you put a timescale on when you're going to be the best team in the land? I was quite surprised he was actually going to put a particular date on it. He said he's not there for 10-year plans, that you need to be challenging every year for the Premier League, for the Champions League, talking about the men's team. And he also focused on United's 150th anniversary. I think it's in 2028, and that's certainly a point where he believes United need to be getting back up there. But talking about financial fair play quite a lot, obviously now the profit and sustainability rules, and it does hinder the amount you can put into the team to invest in such a way, and that'll be something that will restrict their plans as they are going forward. But he knows he's got a huge rebuilding job to execute there, and just knowing how painful things have been for him as a United fan. But one thing is pretty noticeable, the fact that he sat down for an hour with us. We've been talking for the entire Glazers ownership, 19 years, of just how lack of time they spend engaging with the media, fans at all, which has led to sort of perhaps so many of the sort of questionable decisions. So the start of a new era from Sir Jim Ratcliffe by starting to engage and to set out his vision. All right, listen, you're in the room with him for an hour. Tell us, what did you make of him? He's actually very measured. He gives answers that are very precise. He's not there talking in jargon and some of the corporate jargon that we might hear from some people in the sports world. He was using, he's engaging on all sorts of topics, some of the difficult subjects, like the future of Mason Greenwood, who's obviously still on loan in Spain, will be coming back, and didn't close the door to him potentially having a future at Manchester United, talking about the values that they as a club do have. So very open, addressing all these issues and some of the complexity around all of them, but certainly good to get a sense of his vision on just so much, and you realise just how much they've got to try to grapple with in the coming months, not only with the stadium plans, but the squad, the new sporting director, and actually just changing the whole sort of ethos and environment around Manchester United. That's been shaped by the Glazers for so long. He wasn't trying to reflect necessarily on the mistakes the Glazers have made, but he's perhaps looked at other clubs, whether it's Chelsea and some of their player signings in the last couple of years, and how perhaps you might do things differently. Of course, he came very close to potentially buying Chelsea himself. Yes, he said the Ineos ethos is you accept mistakes, but maybe not mistakes twice. So he's certainly open to quite an open culture within the club where people feel that they can have a say, and if things don't go right, you'll forgive them, but
he's determined to get United back up there and certainly in the hunt for trophies very quickly, and of course back into the Champions League, which is the challenge this season as they sit in 6th.